HDZero versus DJI on the racetrack. Let's do this one quickly, Blunty. We're running out of time. Who won?
All right, nobody. I don't know. The answer is nobody. The answer is who do you think won, and that's who won, I would say, at this point. This is a really good example of a video where you can watch it and take away whatever you want to take away from it. And yeah, there's just data, and you get to parse it how you want to parse it.
Well, Vanover raced both of them on a track, right? That's the takeaway.
Yeah, Vanover did 4 packs, you know, like HDZero DJI, HDZero DJI, and then did timed his 3 laps on each one. And they're basically almost identical quads. The HDZero was 6 grams lighter. He tried to make it as heavy as possible compared to DJI. It could have been much lighter. So they did like skew it a little bit for the same weight, at least, right? Because they wanted to just compare the links. And then also Vanover has years of practice on DJI. He flies it commercially, and he's super used to flying DJI all the time. And he's new to HDZero. That being said, the times were very, very, very similar. I mean, like within, you know, less than a second similar.
Yeah.
For all these situations.
We know that a pilot like Vanover can put in laps that are consistent within 1/10 of a second or less. I've seen them. I've seen guys like Vanover do that. Yeah. So a second variance is outside the margin of error, I would say, for a pilot like him.
Yes. So he did the laps back and forth, and there was a little bit of a consistency issue on HDZero, but he got a faster lap. But the DJI was more consistent, which is interesting because it's kind of the opposite of what you hear. But one of the things Vanover mentioned,
his DJI times were more consistent. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, and it also depends on which laps you're watching. So again, because he does a couple sets. So, but you know, for instance, his last HDZero set of laps was 12.2, 12.2, 11.3. So there's a much faster third lap there, which is his fastest lap of the times.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what it seems they did the same. Go ahead.
The DJI times were 12.1. 11.5 and then 11.4. So definitely, but one of the things he says is like, I'm used to the variable latency.
Exactly.
You know, he's like, I know where to fly. I know it's there, but it's not a big deal to me when I fly because I know where it's going to happen. I know how to compensate for it, you know?
Yeah. They did this same test sometime back when DJI first came out versus analog. And the variable latency really messed him up. I think I was actually there when they filmed it. And there was this one particular place where you went through a dive gate and then you had to make a turn, and he kept just tanking into the ground on the dive gate because it was right at the position on the track where the latency would change. And it sounds like with his experience, he's learned to just feel out where the latency is going to change and compensate and then still be pretty good. So it seems like either of them could work, but the fact that it's going to be much lighter is going to give an edge to SharkBite, or HDZero rather. And as Johnny 5 points out, multi-GP is the issues with timing and output power and interference and spectating mean that DJI is just not welcome at bigger multi-GP races. Obviously, your local race will let you fly whatever you bring probably. But if you're a serious racer and intend to go to races like NATS or IO, you're definitely going to not want to use DJI.
Yeah, one of the things I'll point out here is that I feel like even though this was a racing-focused thing, I feel like the implications here are more freestyle implications. Because there's a lot of people who complain about when they're flying freestyle and stuff, like, you know, where the issues are with the variable latency. However, also you're not flying flying freestyle in an open field, so there's also that side of it.
Well,
too.
The biggest thing I think there is that with racing, the changes in latency will be predictable because the laps are the same every time. But the big weakness with freestyle, and obviously with freestyle, if you try and feel out your lines, you could do the same thing. But with freestyle, if you're just like, I'm ripping balls, I'm going wherever I want in the bando, that's where the variable latency of DJI is going to mess you up. Because you're going to fly in a window and suddenly the latency is going to jump right when you need to go through a doorway. And that's where I think HDZero is going to have more of an edge in that sense for freestyle than racing. Which is kind of counterintuitive because you would think racing is where you'd care the most about the latency, but that doesn't seem to be what this test is showing.
It'll kind of just depend on if they can maintain that signal, or if the signal drops when the DJI goes latent. You know, the thing I always experience is that it seems like there's a lot of you know, in the same situations where DJI would get all latent like that, that's where you get the crazy static you can't see through on analog.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it'd be interesting to see.